Hi, I'm Diana Nastasia, an MBA student enrolled in Economics 529 Managerial Economics at SIUE, and I have performed an industrial analysis on the bio-based products industry or the bioeconomy sector for the final project for this class. And I will be speaking about this industrial analysis in the recording. First of all, before we move further into managerial economics issues, we need to clarify what is the bioeconomy. There is an array of resources discussing what the bioeconomy is. It's a hot button issue in Washington, D.C., and it's a hot button issue in the European context at the level of the European Union and the European Commission, and it's a hot button issue in Canada and in other countries and regions. However, in the same time, it is sort of a hidden hot button issue because regular people on the street do not really use the term bioeconomy and don't really understand what it is. So it's been exciting to be able to provide an overview of just definitions and concepts for the first part. So a company called DG Research that works with various Washington, D.C. based governmental agencies defined the bioeconomy as the sustainable, eco-efficient transformation of renewable biological resources into food, energy, and other industrial products. And that was in 2006, so about 10, 11 years ago. A little later, by 2010, the European Commission was defining the bioeconomy as the production and use of biological resources for conversion into commercial products, ranging from food and feed to bio-based products and bioenergy. So it's really all-encompassing across various other sectors. In Canada, the government agency dealing with agriculture and agri-food defined the bioeconomy as an economy based on the sustainable manufacture of products in whole or in part from renewable resources, including all processes from feedstock production through the processing stages to the manufacture of end products, in addition to research, development, and commercialization processes. So again, it crosses agriculture, manufacturing, research, development, commerce, all sorts of aspects. Some other aspects to take into account. From the Institute of European Environmental Policy in 2015, the bioeconomy is a system that has existed since humans first appropriated natural resources for their own gain, such as burning firewood or cultivating crops. So it's in the same time something very, very old and something new, again, research, development. Again, from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in 2015, creating bio-based industries that replace fossil fuels with biodegradable and plant-based versions that can be used as direct fuel substitutes or substitutes in the manufacturing processes is important for ensuring a sustainable future. So the concept of sustainability is also key. This idea of environmental justice, ecological justice, but also of social justice of the human aspect. And finally, from the US Congress, in a report from 2016, bio-based products support the growth of plants, trees, and vegetation, which recycle CO2 from the atmosphere, resulting in air quality improvements when compared to fossil fuel-based products. And this is just scratching the surface, really. An organization called Cooperative Research on Environmental Problems in Europe, for example, again, very recently, has defined the bioeconomy as the knowledge-based economy or the knowledge-based bioeconomy, KBBE. Again, this integration of sustainability, eco-justice, and human aspects, social justice, is very important, as well as the idea of technological innovation and development. And this is just another snapshot of the ways in which the bioeconomy functions, from raw materials to production of chemicals to integrating byproducts and waste into renewing then farming and forestry and agriculture. So what's important to see here and understand here is that the bioeconomy is a renewable process, a circular process in which every component goes back to the others and feeds into the needs and the possibility of the others. Finally, getting to the economics aspects, firstly talking about market structure. Again, from the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, from their 2015 report, the industrial background for the bioeconomy is that the bioeconomy includes at least 3 types of products: bioenergy products or biofuels and byproducts of those, biochemicals and biopharmaceuticals, and biomaterials. So there are these 3 broad categories. And what I have put underneath and what Agri-Food Canada has worked within this small scheme is a sort of a reductionist view of what those include. There are immensely sophisticated issues regarding polymers and processing, from food to plastics to fermentations, or to fibers to fermentation, and all sorts of aspects like that. This is a succinct, flash-like type of classification of what the industry comprises and catches its complexity in a quick view. In terms of concentration, there has been quite an array of data in regards to what the industry is like, and I'm giving you a few facts, but there are many others, and these are again from the University of Northern Texas, which had a sort of a snapshot report, the US Department of Agriculture's report, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which also had a report in 2015, and those are listed in the bibliography at the end. So the global market opportunity for bioproducts, it is currently at 200 billion value, which is a huge value. Biochemicals, other than pharmaceuticals, than biopharma, has increased from 1.8% of all chemical production about 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago, to approximately 20% of all chemical production in 2015, and it's growing fast from there. So again, another important aspect, the bioeconomy seems to be taking over many other aspects, traditional chemistry and so on, and we are not even including biopharma in this. Another projection has been that by 2018, the global market for bioplastics alone, so one of the 3 components of the bioeconomy, if you remember, one under biomaterials, the bioplastics, will be at $5 billion. And then the growth rate is of 32%, and also by 2022, the value added potential is estimated to be 3 billion per year, or 6 billion capital investment. So again, we're talking huge amounts of money, and what you will see a little later, and I'm anticipating, interestingly, in spite of these big sums, it's quite a competitional market. It's not a monopolistic market, it's not an oligopoly, it's not a duopoly, it's quite close to a perfect competition market, maybe because of the social justice issues and the eco-justice issues integrated in the industry. So going a little further, still in regards to industry concentration, In 2011, the global energy production from biomass and biofuels was at about 13% of the world total of energy production. And this was cited in Agri-Food Canada from Renewables 2011 Global Status Report, but Agri-Food Canada and other sources are saying, again, 13% was a 2011 number. It's actually growing fast from there, even more. So again, several complicated types of branches of the industry, and yet all growing quite fast. The bioenergy growing, the biochemicals and biopharmaceuticals growing, the biomaterials, bioplastics, biofibers, with research and development at a boom and with expected growth in the future at a very fast pace. Here is another interesting aspect of the industry concentration in the United States from the US Department of Agriculture report. It's a map of where in the US bio-based product industries are stronger or weaker. And the darker green shows, and the higher numbers show increased activity in bio-based products industry, and the lighter green, lower numbers indicate decreased activity in those states. So we are kind of in the middle with a little darker, a little lighter in our region, stronger bio-based products industries somewhere on the upper East Coast, upper West Coast, and down the coast, as probably expected. But we are in a growth area, and I'm going to talk about that too a little later. In terms of technological and cost conditions, moving to this aspect of the industry, this is from OECD, from their 2015 report. If we discuss what types of biotechnology applications reach the market, the biofuels production has partially shifted and continues to shift from starch-based bioethanol to higher energy density fuels manufactured from sugars, and bioethanol from wood from lignocellulosic feedstock, grasses also. So this is an industry that's 150 years old, actually, in regards to trying to produce biofuels in the US and in Europe and in all sorts of other regional contexts internationally. And initially it started with starch, with corn, but then it's moving in all sorts of other directions and trying to make extraction as profitable as possible, as cost-effective as possible, while also not taking people's foods while producing bio-based industry materials. So this concern would be removed, or at least partially removed from the industry. In regards to health, in addition to that, biotechnological knowledge increasingly plays a role in the development of all types of therapies. So we are now talking about the biotech, biopharma areas. And there are all sorts of clinical trials, prescribing practices in development, in process, that are also supposed to be well integrated into the market, be able to reduce costs, be able to be applicable without having the toxic medical consequences of pharmacogenics based on non-bio products and so on. To continue, also based on past trends, field trial data, and company reports, it is estimated that approximately half of global production of food, feed, and industrial feedstock crops will come from various types of GM, genetically modified intragenics, gene shuffling, and marker-assisted selection by 2020 and going forward. And that also livestock will be highly impacted by this type of technological advancement. So again, we're talking agriculture, highly impacted by technological development, research and development, and becoming more cost-effective and profit-effective. Also, and here are some considerations related to cost, and cost specifically in regards to, on one hand, biofuels and how they are related to fossil fuels, and on the other hand, how issues regarding bio-based products are affected by the prices in agriculture. So, and this is from the Royal Society of Chemistry in a very recent report, 2016 report, so from the UK. While costs of research and development are relatively high for biotechnologies and bio-based products, mass production becomes increasingly sustainable as compared to fossil fuel-based products as technologies have advanced and commercialization is easier and easier. And while there are subsidies in place often for fossil fuel-based products, especially in the OECD countries, there is this aspect that technological advances in the bio-based products will make them more and more competitive without any doubt, and will position them to pretty much conquer the market at a specific point in time. So subsidies can't stop development, especially if that development is also related to sustainability and social justice. This is also related to technology and cost. It's a little bit more complicated an explanation. I'm not going to go through each and every aspect of this chart, but this shows how technology impacts the way in which we process those types of biomaterials from which we produce those biofuels and those biochemicals and those biomaterials through all sorts of types of processes, catalysis and fermentation and all sorts of stuff like that, and what uses those products can have. And again, the more we will do this, the more the technology will be better but also cheaper, and the more the cost of those products will be lower and more competitive with fossil fuel-based materials. Moving forward to demand, there has been definitely a growing demand of all of those three types of components, the biofuels, biochemicals, and biomaterials. And this is according to the US Department of Agriculture's report from 2015, but this is also supported by Agri-Canada, by the OECD report, and by other reports. The bio-based products industry has grown from the levels of millions of dollars to the level of value added of billions of dollars from one decade to another, even from every 1 year to another recently. And it produces jobs at a high pace. These are direct and indirect effects of the bioeconomy according to the OECD report from 2015. Again, millions of full-time and part-time jobs with well-paying, high-paying wages, with living wages and family-sustaining wages. And that's another attractive feature of the industry, that because it's research intensive and development intensive based, although it might be expensive in the first stages, and although it can't quite yet compete with fossil fuel based materials, it produces these jobs that are much more attractive in many ways than in traditional manufacturing, for example, or just a factory or plant type of job. They require a little bit higher training, but they also provide much higher salaries than in those traditional industry-related jobs. In terms of ease of entry and exit, there is definitely an increasing number of businesses and business opportunities related to the bioeconomy at local levels and regional levels and nationally and internationally. And as I just showed, there are jobs, there is a growing number of jobs. However, what I chose to focus in regard to this, and this is primarily because it's my own interest, I work for a bioeconomic consortium out of the NSERC at SIE on the SIE campus. So the way in which the offering of bioeconomy education tracks leading to those careers that are growing, that's an important aspect for me and for the projects that I help lead and for the organization where I work. So according to data from the Department of Education and from the Department of Labor, there are all sorts of jobs. So entry level is possible at the level, for example, for someone with high school education, as well as for somebody with a bachelor's degree or even an associate's degree from a community college in between, and then with upper level degrees in a master's degree or a doctoral level degree. So there are also entry level and mid-level and advanced level positions in the bio-based industries, in the bio-based sector, and those go across an array of very diverse fields. Some jobs and some opportunities for education and then leading to jobs are in energy and manufacturing, as expected, and in the agriculture, life and physical sciences. But then there are also managerial positions related to infrastructure, plant operator positions, business positions, policy analyst position. Policy has been going up and down in regards to this field, so knowing policies is definitely a plus. And then education, communication, outreach positions, communications, PR, marketing, all of those types of areas. So there are definitely opportunities for business, but also opportunities for careers in these fields with a fairly easy entry-level process. And then I've also worked on matching the bioeconomy employers in our region with those Department of Education, Department of Labor career pathways, career maps that were showcased. And as you can see, I'm not going to go through them in detail, but there are companies that hire on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly, on a yearly basis in each of these fields. And so there are jobs out there to pursue by those interested in the bioeconomy. And since this type of field, the bioeconomy, is in tune, for example, with the millennials' stated desire in all sorts of studies to work in fields that are sustainable and that, yes, make money, but also fulfill higher goals in their lives. Working for these companies that are bioeconomy related regionally in our Illinois, Missouri region, can definitely bring benefits that are to take into account, considerable benefits. Moving from the discussion of the market structure, so the industrial background, again, industry concentration, technology and cost considerations, and demand considerations, including business and career demands. We are now moving to conduct, to what types of approaches are there in the industry in regards to pricing, to advertising, to research and development, and to merger activities. And we touched a little bit on all of these, but let's go into more detail on these. In regards to pricing, the growth of the bio-based products is partially dependent on the price gap with products based in fossil fuels. And this is something I talked a little bit about under cost, and it's also applicable to prices. And this is data from OECD from their 2015 report. So while prices of biofuels are currently higher than prices of oil-based products in the OECD countries in particular, biofuels have become increasingly economically viable in non-OECD countries. If your oil is relatively cheap and you can buy it and you don't suffer at the pump, you are not going to move to biofuels very easily unless there is a push and marketing and so on. However, if your oil is expensive and your family almost can't afford it, you are going to find all sorts of ways to move towards other products, and biofuels are sustainable in those areas where the reality of the situation is that oil is very expensive. Also, the prices of bio-based plastics is already competitive with the petroleum-based plastics, primarily due to these huge technological pushes. There have been companies testing and testing for years and years. In one of the places where they test at SIUE, and so innovation has brought down prices of bioplastics, and it's going to continue to bring down bioplastics as well as biochemicals and biomaterials. So this is, again, an expected trend to go in the same direction. And I also mentioned under cost that the relative price of agricultural biomass to food commodities is an issue. So since we produce the bioeconomy related products from agricultural biomass, the prices for agricultural biomass are important for bioprocess and bioproducts and the bioeconomy in general. And there have been some concerns that support for biomass production for the bioeconomy based products might have adverse impacts on food commodity availability and also prices, but this has not so far proven that way. So case study after case study has shown that actually an expansion of ethanol, for example, does not necessarily produce increases in the prices of corn and sugars. And that was a case in Brazil. There were also cases in various countries in Asia and Africa that showed that there were only marginal increases. And so some of the concerns related to availability and price have not so far at least been supported by the reality of the situation. It has been noted, and it continues to be noted by these various organizations that do reports and studies about the bioeconomy, that the same way in which countries and regions and international organizations have used policy measures and subsidies for oil-based products, at the point where the bio-based products take over and surpass biofuels, they should benefit from the same mix of policy measures and subsidies so that the market would remain fair, that it wouldn't have unfair competition, that food that is needed as food will not be used for bioproducts, and so on. So it's a matter of a mix of policy, of regulation, of subsidy, through which all of these concerns can be addressed long term. In terms of advertising, I thought this is a good little graph to show. It discusses, based on research done by an advertising agency, again, one based in Washington, D.C., that works with the federal agencies of the US government. So Growth Energy, this advertising group, did market research and looked at the favorability of bio-based products, and how there is an opportunity for advertising to increase their favorability. And if you look there, if you tell people ethanol, they have a quite unfavorable reaction to it. However, if you tell people biofuels, which is almost the same thing, arguably it starts with ethanol and sort of goes from there in all sorts of directions, as I showed earlier under technologies, the favorability rate is much higher. So there is a place for advertising in the bioeconomy industries in order to increase favorability, to show people what to do with solar and wind. And it's not ugly, and it's not dangerous, and it's not unreliable, and that we should indeed move from fossil fuels to all these other possibilities, for example. I also was mentioning that there is this sort of disconnect. In Washington, D.C., the bioeconomy is well known and appreciated and subject to reports and legislation, and then you would go in an Illinois community or even at SIE among young students, millennials who should benefit from the bioeconomy, and you ask what's the bioeconomy, and nobody knows anything. So promotion and outreach and advertising are definitely important for this field. And then in terms of research and development, and this is my case study organization, this is about the National Corn to Ethanol Research Center at SIE, the NSERC at SIE, which is in many ways both an industry player and an education and training player. So NSERC has a pilot plant which works at this point almost the whole year for industry clients to test, to scale up their products to become ready for commercialization. But it is also a place where students from SIE, from the Lewis and Clark Community College, from all sorts of organizations, educational organizations in the area, do internships and fellowships and learn the trade. So it's definitely a public-private partnership that is working well. And it's a place where development of products, technologies, and ideas is pursued, in the sense that, again, you move from the small scale at NSERC to larger scale in the mass production side. And then I had a little bit here when I prepared the slides initially, but then I added a lot in regards to merger activity. And before I discuss what's on the slide, I wanted to mention that it was interesting to me that in the Michael Bay and Jeff Prince Managerial Economics and Business Strategy book, in our textbook for the class, it was mentioned, rightfully so, I'm sure, that there are industries in which there is competition, and then there are industries that are monopolistic, and industries that are duopolies, in which duopolies function, and then oligarchies and oligopolies on the market. And I was mentioning a little earlier, and I want to highlight that again, the bioeconomy is one of those areas in which there have been huge amounts of companies entering the market, and there are many small and middle-sized companies, as well as some larger players. So there is this competition, this sort of more level field than in other sectors. And the things I've added there is, for example, a list of the Renewable Fuels Association ethanol biorefinery companies by location and business information. And if you click on that link and look at that data, is a huge amount of biorefineries out there, several of them in our area. So again, business opportunity for our region. If you look at Biofuels Digest, the hottest 50 companies in the advanced bioeconomy in 2016, you will see a number of companies that are large and corporations, not necessarily traditional, not necessarily bioeconomy related from the beginning. They have kind of entered the bioeconomy, but they were traditional corporations in other areas, Nestle, for example, or all sorts of other players like that. But then there are also these new companies, sort of small middle range, growing, trendy, doing technological development, research and development again. So, and even the fact that there haven't been major mergers in the sector, there have been rapid growth and sort of fast-paced trends, but mergers haven't occurred yet. So that's another sign of sort of healthy competition rather than trends towards monopoly or oligopoly. And now moving to performance, and this again is from OECD 2015. Bioproducts are increasingly profitable. Profitability increases as we move towards what some people have called, and some researchers and some policy groups, some think tanks have called, a complete and transformative bioeconomy. And to give you an idea, this is from Technology Business Research from 2016 brief report. This is how the bioeconomy looks like as this complete and transformative bioeconomy. There is an upstream and downstream. There is again that idea, like in the slide I showed in the beginning with the circular view, to go in multiple directions, but also to go in the circle, to renew, to recycle. Upstream, for example, there is machinery, but also financial services, construction, feedstock. Downstream, there is retailing, publishing, wholesaling, health services, accommodation. And then the transformative area, sort of in the middle, is everything that we said when I defined the bioeconomy from multiple sources, that it's old as well as new. It's based on the oldest best practices in the world, as well as on very targeted technology, research and development. So agriculture and fishing and forestry and lodging, industrial biotechnology, food and beverage production, water, remediation of water sources, and so on. So it's this cool, again, it's another way to show that circular view, but with a more focus on the business side and the money side, and how the economic aspects are involved into this. Finally, one of my favorite areas, that of social and environmental impact. And I said early on in this presentation that the bioeconomy is very much related to social and environmental justice. So the bioeconomy is a potential driver for the revitalization of rural areas, providing incentives for enhanced agricultural activities. And yes, there might be sometimes issues related to costs, and some other times issues related to, do we take the food to transform the food into other things, and sometimes even issues related to, is it healthy to use genetically modified, or should we just do nothing, to not involve any human hand in production and processing of all these products. But I think, again, one by one and in time, and through case studies, and through some anecdotal information, and through some very clearly systematic research, we can prove that those are aspects that can be addressed through a balance of good practices and policies and regulations, and including keeping a targeted connection to the humans involved in the process. But those are things that are good in regards to the bioeconomy, the idea that it can provide revitalization of rural and in some ways also to urban areas. It contributes to the growth and the development of the global south. Again, the fact that biofuels in those areas can be cheaper than fossil fuel-based materials. The fact that it can help maintain an appropriate level of agricultural production and livestock. The fact that it gives farmer possibilities to convert their products in through bioprocessing and fermentation and so on into all sorts of other products, and thus their prices for their products increase. And again, this is from OECD as well as from an organization called Biostat recent reports. But these are benefits of the bioeconomy in terms of environmental and social impact. And then environmentally, so socially, it's the possibility to develop those areas that are underdeveloped and those populations, to help those populations that are underprivileged and underserved. And then in terms of environmental impact, it's the replacing of fossil fuel-based products with bio products, which should be good for everything, for our air, for our water, reducing our dependency to the finite resources, lowering carbon emissions, re-improving the quality of the soil, which is much needed in many areas. All of these land slides and all of these, even some of these floods and weather changes occur because, as we all know, we are affecting the environment too much by appealing too much to the finite resources. And then these are some neat charts that show how health and changing lands and improving quality of life and quality of water and quality of food and quality of nutrition and even employment with, well, sustainable jobs and household incomes, and all of those have a strong social impact. And here is the environmental impact, and again, the two are intertwined. If we have better quality of food and better quality of air and better quality of water, we live better, so our society is better. But then we return to all of these purely environmental factors. If we have better water and our ecosystem becomes healthier, the carbon emissions are going down, we really just have a better planet to live on, and we are able to preserve what we have, not just for us, but for our future generations, which in many studies has been defined as sustainability, and as mentioned before, sustainability and the bioeconomy go hand in hand. So I have addressed several of those areas required for an industrial analysis, namely market structure and conduct and performance. And the conclusion would be that we need the bioeconomy, and we can grow the bioeconomy, and the bioeconomy is in many ways growing whether we like it or not, but it can grow even further and in a more coordinated manner if we understand all these economics, managerial economics, social, environmental aspects, and refer to them in our daily lives as well as in our professions and communities. And here is the list of references. They have grown from the time when I initially wrote the industry analysis to now. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Sorry?